Let's talk about the Calvin cycle. I want to start out by reminding you of the chemical reaction of photosynthesis. 6 carbon dioxide plus 6 H2O plus light energy yields glucose plus 6 molecules of oxygen. In the light-dependent reactions of photosynthesis, we broke apart water to produce oxygen, and at the end, we also produced NADPH and ATP. After the light-dependent reactions, a plant cell will enter the Calvin cycle, which takes place in the stroma of the chloroplast. In this cycle, we will use carbon dioxide to produce glucose. First, I'm going to walk you through the steps of the Calvin cycle, and then we will analyze why these steps happen. So in the Calvin cycle, we fix carbon on RUBP using an enzyme called Rubisco. And Rubisco is the most abundant protein in the world. We will then produce 3-phosphoglycerate and then use ATP and NADPH to produce G3P. We will remove one G3P molecule, and we will be left with 5 G3P, which will then be regenerated to RUBP. When I was first studying this cycle, I found the names of the different molecules to be intimidating. But if you count and follow the number of carbons throughout the cycle, you might understand this process better. So let's do that. First, you should know that these red circles symbolize carbons. Let's start with this molecule, RUBP. RUBP has 5 carbons in it. That means that if we have 3 RUBP molecules, and if each molecule has 5 carbons, then 3 times 5 is 15, so we have 15 carbons. Next, carbon dioxide will enter the cycle, and each carbon dioxide molecule has 1 carbon. We need 3 carbon dioxides to enter the Calvin cycle in order to produce 1 glucose. So when 3 carbon dioxide molecules enter, then we have 3 new carbon molecules. 15 plus 3 is 18, so we have 18 carbons total. We will now turn this into 3 molecules of phosphoglycerate. Each phosphoglycerate has 3 carbons. 6 times 3 is 18, so we still have 18 carbons like we should. We will then use ATP and NADPH to produce 6 G3P. Again, 6 times 3 is still 18, so we still have all our carbons. We have not lost any carbons. We will then take out 1 G3P for glucose. That means that we have lost 3 carbon molecules. So we should have 18 minus 3 equals 15 carbons. Now we have 5 G3P because 6 minus 1 is 5. Since we have 5 G3P and each G3P has 3 carbons, then 5 times 3 is 15. So we have 15 carbons now. We will regenerate RUBP, and as we expected, RUBP has 15 carbons. This is why we call this a cycle. The molecule that we start with is the same molecule that we end with. Now let's understand why this process happens. Well, carbon dioxide is the most stable form of carbon. That means that it has the least amount of energy. We will create glucose from carbon dioxide. Glucose is high in energy. That is why our body can use it to do work. Now, in order to go from low energy to high energy molecules, we must input energy from somewhere. So where does this energy come from? Well, ATP and NADPH are oxidized here. They lose electrons or energy. So the energy that is released by ATP and NADPH is used to reduce carbon dioxide to glucose. Also remember that these molecules of ATP and NADPH came from the light-dependent reactions of photosynthesis. We produce them at the end of the electron transport chain, and if that doesn't make sense to you, definitely go watch my video on photosynthesis light-dependent reactions. We will then break apart more ATP molecules here to release energy that can be used to regenerate RUBP. Now, the last thing you should know is the 3 stages of the Calvin cycle, which are carbon dioxide, fixation, reduction, and regeneration. Here we fix carbon dioxide onto RUBP. Here we're going to reduce carbon dioxide into glucose using the energy from ATP and NADPH. And then here we will regenerate or recreate RUBP from G3P. And that for you is the Calvin cycle.